Greetings, Commanders! My name is Eagle, and in today's video, we are featuring a pretty awesome officer, which is Abigail. Now, Abigail was added to the game a couple of days ago in the latest update, and now we're going to feature her skills, her talent trees, best combinations, and pairings, in addition to how to obtain her in the game, and what are her possible roles to be played in case of war. If you like these types of videos where we give you deep and detailed officer guides so that you guys can excel in the battlefield and smash your enemies, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video for more Case of War content. And make sure, guys, we're super close to hitting 1,000 subscribers, so make sure to share this video with your guildmates so that they can actually know all these kind of tricks, and make sure to ring that notification bell as well so that you would get notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, thank you guys so much for your support, and without further ado, let's get right into this video. So, first of all, I want to go through her skills, just explaining how these skills work, and then we're going to go through the prioritization of these skills depending on the role that you're going to play Abigail. Now, Abigail has mainly two roles in the game. First role, as you can see from her talent trees, she has tank, garrison, and defense. Now, she can actually be played as a defense officer, where you can actually put her as in garrison, and she would be defending your base. Or you can actually play her as a tank sustainability officer, where you put her as a pure tank march that has high sustainability and defense and would sustain for longer time in the battlefield. Now, for her skills, her active skill actually does a pretty solid damage multiplier of 750. Not the biggest in the game, but it's still pretty good. However, the debuff that it gives is pretty amazing. That 30% defense increase or decrease to the target that you're attacking is pretty solid, especially if that target is being swarmed or being attacked by multiple targets. You'd be dealing 30% more damage to that target. It's pretty good, and it's definitely useful in many different situations in the battlefield, or even in Normandy Arena or in Raiders event. Now, moving on to her second passive skill, which gives you 5% defense increase when maxed out when serving as a garrison officer. Now, it's worth mentioning over here that this defense increase does not only apply for tanks, it applies for every single troop type that you have in your base. So this is actually pretty good, and I do believe this skill is pretty solid too. Now, moving on to her third passive skill, which actually gives you 10% tank defense increase and 10% tank health increase, which I think is pretty solid, gives those tanks pretty high sustainability, and I actually like this skill a lot. Now, moving on to her fourth skill, which is the most interesting skill so far. It's basically every time you are attacked, there's a 10% chance that you will launch a strong counterattack ranging between 100 and 400 damage multiplier depending on the level of this passive skill, but it's a pretty solid skill, and we're going to talk about how this skill can be utilized after we actually see the buff that will happen to, or will be added to it once it's awakened. You will actually be able to heal your troops by a 400 healing multiplier in addition to the damage multiplier of 400. Now, this skill, guys, over here is pretty solid, because if you read it and understand what's the meaning behind it, so every time you are attacked, that means if you are getting swarmed, you're attacked one time each round, and the round actually lasts about a second. So you're attacked one time each second. Now, each second, you would have a 10% chance to actually dealing a damage multiplier and healing your troops. And this is not bound to any time. So basically, it doesn't happen every 5 seconds. It could actually happen every single consecutive second if you're lucky enough. But you don't have to be lucky when you are being swarmed. And this is the whole thing. So if you're being attacked by like multiple troops, let's say 3 troops, so every second, you would have about a 30% chance to cast this skill over here, which I think is pretty solid because of the fact that you'll be dealing counter attack damage and healing your own troops multiple times throughout the fight, and this would change the whole situation in the fight and actually flip the fight to your side. I have actually seen this skill in action, and it is pretty solid. I can tell you that, guys. It is a pretty solid skill, definitely worth upgrading and maxing out. Now for her skill prioritization, if you are using her as a tank sustainability officer, what I would recommend is that maxing out her first ability, where basically for both roles you have to max out her first ability. It's pretty good, and the active skill is just insane over here. So max out this active skill first. Now if you are using her as a tank sustainability, I would go and put some points in this skill over here and then move on to this skill over here. Now why am I gonna do that? This is because of the fact that it's very easy to actually max her out, and you need that consistent active buffs in the fight before you can actually play with chances over here, because this ability works best when you are getting swarmed, and because of the fact that it has like a lower chance when you're one-on-one, I still believe it works best. Like, it works best when getting swarmed, but one-on-one can actually, if you're lucky enough, you can cast this ability couple of times, and it will change the like the situation in the fight. However, I don't recommend going for it as for now, because of the fact that it's not the best skill if you are like, you want sustainable buffs throughout the fight rather than putting all your luck aside, unless you are using her extensively in Normandy Arena to defend your troops as a frontline officer. Then I would recommend going with this skill and then this skill, but it highly depends what you're using it for. So if you're using her just for field fights, one-on-ones, then I would go 1, 2, 3, and then 4. However, if you're planning to use her as a garrison officer, as a garrison defense officer, then I would go with 1, 2, then 3, and then lastly the tank buffs over here. This is because of the fact that your base consists of multiple troop types, so the last thing you want to add is buffs for your tanks. I mean, I understand that these buffs are pretty cool, but buffing all your troops by 5%, then this is much better, because you'll be buffing, like, for example, if you have 1 million troops, you'll be buffing like 300k of them. However, this one would be buffing the whole million troops, so this is why I think this one is much better when you are trying to put her as a garrison officer. Now, as we said, she works best versus swarming, so even if your base is getting swarmed, this is still a pretty solid officer to go with as well. Even versus rallies, she works as good versus rallies as well, because this ability heals like huge amounts, especially if your base is being reinforced with your allies. Then I think this is basically a phenomenal combination that you can go with. Now for talents, if you are using her, as I'm doing right now, for a tank sustainability, I would go ahead and max out swoop down first, then go for the defense tree over here, because you need that sustainability, right? So I would go ahead and max out this one, or all the way to defense formation, then go back over here, max out the talent tree for tanks, and then afterwards I would go for urgent treatment. Now urgent treatment is pretty solid. I do recommend maxing her out. However, if you're trying to go for full sustainability, you don't really care that much about tanks, then I would go for maxing out the defense tree and then moving down to iron defense over here, all the way from up there, focusing of course first on swoop down and then the tank health over here, because you need full sustainability for the fights. So this is mainly the build that I would recommend. Now for defense, if you're using her as a garrison officer, I would go all the way, max out the defense tree all the way to intense defense, and then go ahead and start putting some talent points in the garrison tree, reaching all the way to down there. You need to focus on multiple things over here. First of all, total defense, which I think is pretty solid, in addition to tactical defense over here, which will reduce the skill damage received by your troops by 10% when maxed out, which I think is pretty solid, especially versus swarming, because this way you would be reducing the skill damage of every single troop that is swarming you by 10%, and I think it is pretty solid as well. So this is mainly the talent trees for Abigail, depending on which role you're using her for. Now, how to obtain her badges? You can simply obtain those badges from the recruitment center over here. So if you are doing, just a sec, yeah. So basically, if you go over here, you would see that you can get her badges from the basic recruitment chests, in addition to her full badge and some badges like badge or like cards from the elite recruitment rewards as well. She is also, I would definitely recommend as well using universal epic sculptures or badges to actually upgrade her. This is because of the fact that she is a pretty solid tank defense sustainability officer, which I think is really underrated at this point because of the fact that she could definitely be used in many different things like Normandy. I would believe her role in Normandy would be enormous, and it's insanely good due to the fact that you can put her in the front line. She would be tanking multiple hits and would be swarmed. Like you would put her in a way so that she can actually is swarmed. So where I would put her in Normandy, if you guys are following this, I'm going to leave a card at the top. If you haven't seen my guide on Normandy, I would definitely put her over here. So this side will be swarmed by multiple troops, and she would be healing up so much, dealing so much counterattack damage, and she would just do a great job tanking the hits from over this side. Now, for best pairings, I would definitely go for, and by the way guys, if you've seen, like I'm right now using the computer, I'm using an emulator called Mimo. I do recommend using that emulator, or even BlueStacks works as well. So if you were wondering how I'm playing throughout my computer, I'm using basically an emulator. Now for best pairings, I would definitely think her best pairing by far is Natalia, due to the fact that she is very similar to Natalia in terms of builds and roles in the game, and when they are paired together, they form that amazing tank sustainability march that just tanks basically everything else. It's gonna be like a huge march, especially with Natalia's healing multiplier over here. That march can tank so much damage, it's gonna be crazy. Now, another pairing that I would use her with is actually Grace, due to the fact that she has huge amounts of counterattack damage, and this way, paired with Abigail's counterattack increase, in addition to the actual skill that gives or that does counterattack damage multiplier, this combination would be very solid as well. Now, for combinations, if you want some sort of like giving it some sort of sustainability in addition to burst damage, I would go for Catherine or Linda over here as a more free-to-play player friendly choice. I wouldn't highly recommend this combination. I think it's pretty solid. Hey, like you would have that a little bit of tankiness coming from Abigail and a little bit of burst damage coming from Linda or Catherine, but I do not fully recommend that combination, because these, like, you need to pair officers in terms of how they can actually affect like their skills together and be more effective in the battlefield itself. So I would definitely recommend pairing those two, pairing Abigail with more defensive or sustainability officers such as Natalia and Grace over here. Now basically this was it for Abigail, guys. This is one of the officers that I actually like, and I'm currently investing heavily in. I want to get her up to level 50, immediately pair her up with my Grace so that I can have that like pretty solid Normandy Arena combination that can actually block multiple targets even when swarmed. So this way I would actually be dealing very high counterattack damage, and using her passive skill, Abigail's passive skill, to heal my troops and deal even more counterattack damage. So yeah, I hope you like this video, guys. Please make sure to subscribe, share this video with your friends. We really need to reach that 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to me, guys. And I have a huge surprise for you guys at 1,000 subscribers. We will definitely improve the channel over there. As you guys can see with the new overlay, we have tried to actually increase the size of the game so it's actually more enjoyable for you guys. So make sure to tell your friends about these videos, and thank you so much. We will definitely see you on the next video. Have a good one, guys. Bye bye.